Hi, I'm Jenny Hutchinson from the Heidi Collection. Today I'm sharing the answer to our weekly Guess the Silhouette social media challenge, where we post an image of a silhouette shape on social media with images of the room that object is located in, and then we ask participants to guess what object in the room it is. For this week's Guess the Silhouette, we moved out of the music room where we've been the last 2 weeks and searched for a shape in our founder Charlotte Hyde's bedroom. Mrs. Hyde's bedroom includes many of the modern artworks from our collection, and different from the music room, features an interior decoration and furniture influenced by French art and culture. Are you ready for this week's shape? Here we go. This shape takes the form of a sculpture by Jean-Antoine Houdon and features a young girl by the name of Louise Brongniart. Louise was the daughter of architect Alexander Theodore Brongniart, and Alexander is famous for the design of the Paris Bourse, which historically houses the Paris Stock Exchange. It can also be referred to as the Place de la Brongniart, after its architect. The date of this sculpture is currently unknown, yet we do know this bust first appeared as a terracotta sculpture along with a bust of Louise's brother, also named Alexander, at the 1777 Salon in Paris. These portraits became extremely popular, and many were reproduced in different materials, including marble, bronze, terracotta, such as our sculpture, as we believe anyway, and porcelain. Interestingly, Alexander, Louise's brother, would become a prominent mineralogist, chemist, geologist, paleontologist, and zoologist. His work would lead him to direct the Sèvres porcelain manufactory between 1800 and 1847, and he would go on to found the National Museum of Ceramics in France. Busts of children were not commonplace before 1750. This popularity was brought forth by a shift in philosophies regarding raising a child, specifically focused on the nature of education. This shift in philosophy is said to be brought about by ideas presented in Jean-Jacques Rousseau's book Émile, which came out in 1762. These shifts in view specifically regard how education can shape one's life and look at the nature of man. It was publicly burned the same year of its publication, but would be revived during the French Revolution. Popularity of this sort of sculpture can also be attributed to the mass production of such sculptures and their ability to be accessible now to all classes of society. The sculpture of Louise Brongniart was designed as a pair along with her brother Alexander. I'm not able to show you an image of Alexander due to copyright restrictions, but with a quick Google search, you'll be able to pull it up. In contrast to Alexander, Louise is poised and much more subdued. Her brother Alexander is positioned to be a bit more lively and with more expression. Louise's hair is positioned in a bun that's secured neatly by a band around her head. You'll notice she's without clothing, and her features are much more soft, yet are effectively sculpted to showcase the round forms of a youthful face, as Alexander's are too, but in a slightly different manner. Louise is believed to be about 5 years old when this portrait was completed. She is portrayed to definitely be the more serious of the two, which is quite interesting when we consider her brother's future work and life as a prominent scientist. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to track down any further information on Louise to support any characteristic findings here, in relation to her future anyway. However, the two contrasting dispositions are likely to be linked to personalities and roles defined by one's gender. These sculptures were so beloved, they were reproduced well into the 20th century. As there were many of the sculpture reproduced, we know this is a reproduction, but we have not yet been able to identify from what period. We do know that the original sculpture, which our copy is based from, is located at the Louvre, along with her brother Alexander. We know this because, or the Louvre knows this, because the originals were purchased directly from the descendants of the family members. Now let's talk a little bit about the artist Jean-Antoine Houdon. Houdon was considered a sculptor of the French Enlightenment His sculpting abilities perfectly mirrored the virtues of the Enlightenment. His work showcased an honest approach to rendering the form of his subject's physical appearance. Within the physical characteristics of a person's face, Houdon also considered their demeanor and captured the essence of his model's individual personality. Houdon was born in 1741 in Versailles and led a privileged life, but not due to his lineage, but as a result, at the start anyway, from where his father worked, which was at the École des Élèves Protégés. This was an elite preparatory school that exposed him to artists in the Louvre. Through the curriculum of the school, Houdon honed his skills as a sculptor, and in 1761, he is awarded the prestigious prize of the Prix de Rome, which is a scholarship for students to study in Rome from the Academy. From there, Houdon goes on to have a flourishing career in sculpture. However, his commissions of work would be considered modest, as he gains his popularity through sculpted portraiture, which was less grand in scale, price, and prestige than monumental sculpture. But he does sculpt some monumental figures of history. From his time in Italy, Houdon became exceedingly interested in human anatomy, which greatly supports his ability to perfect and render someone's natural physique. This would lend well to making a career out of producing the likeness of legendary heroes for the public. In France, that will include portraits for influential philosophers such as Voltaire and Denis Diderot. This sculpture will also support Houdon's ability to make his art transcontinental, and he'll come to the United States to produce a series of sculpted portraits of prominent governmental figures such as George Washington, Ben Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. It is important to note Houdon lives during an exceedingly tumultuous time for France, which includes the French Revolution. During the French Revolution, Houdon positions himself in a quieter role, but retains his prestige by turning his attention to more nostalgic work, like portraits of children, and our sculpture of Louise Brongniart. During this time, he also creates busts of his own children. Due to sculpture's ability, as I mentioned earlier, to now be accessible to the masses, these portraits of children find their ways into homes for generations and in multiple countries. Also during this time period, Houdon will also privately, very privately, spend his time creating portraits of revolutionary notables for sympathizing patrons. Jean-Antoine Houdon led a remarkable career that was supported by his skills and interests. His ability to capture his model's honesty with individual expression creates an emphatic and real connection point between viewer and sculpture. It is this transformative ability that cements his name as part of art history. Well, there's the answer to this week's Guess the Silhouette. I'll be back next Monday with a new form, a new shape to guess, and I'm looking forward to sharing information about that artwork with you. See you next week. Bye.